Have you ever had a dream that profoundly changed your life, revealing hidden secrets from your past? It may seem unusual, but believe me, I've had this experience, and what happened transformed me completely. Imagine, for a moment, being transported to a setting where time and space fade away, and you find yourself confronted with memories you never knew were still there, buried, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. That's how I found fire. Not just any fire, but a spiritual, burning fire that emerged in the midst of a silent darkness. The flames illuminated the path I walked, and as I progressed, I increasingly felt a strange sense that this fire wasn't there to destroy me, but to reveal something deeply necessary to me. Have you ever experienced something that felt like a direct message from beyond? Something that seemed not just a dream, but a calling? Stay with me until the end of this video, and I'll share with you how this dream led me to a desert I had avoided for so long, where ancient secrets were unearthed, and, most importantly, where true healing and forgiveness took place. I know it may seem surreal, but what happened in that dream was much more than a vision. It was like a summons for me to encourage my spirit to confront what had been hidden, until then, in a dark corner of my soul. How would you feel if you were suddenly challenged to face your own deepest wounds? What would you do if the key to your healing lay in looking at what you feared most? This dream, with the fire and the desert, wasn't just an encounter with the past, it was an invitation to journey through pain and anguish, but also to be reborn, stronger and more whole. What you'll discover now may surprise you, because the path I've walked, like many of us, is full of mysteries and revelations we don't always want to hear, but which are essential to our spiritual transformation. Now, I want to take you to this place, where the fire revealed more than just the secrets of my past. Stay with me, because true transformation begins when we dare to walk through this desert, facing what holds us back, and finally discovering the power to heal and forgive. As I walked through the desert, the heavy footsteps and the heat of the fire accompanied me, but something inside me began to transform. With each revelation, I felt I was closer to something greater, something that could change my life forever. And then, the fire began to dissipate the fog of doubt I carried, and forgiveness began to emerge like a gentle flame, ready to purify. Deep down, I knew that this moment of transformation was not just mine. I believe we all experience these moments, in dreams or in real life, where we are called to confront our past, our wounds, and embrace the healing we so desperately need. No, you might be wondering, is this real? Could I go through something like this too? The truth is, these transformative moments don't come without warning. They appear unexpectedly, like a dream or an experience that calls us to action. If this topic resonated with you, if something inside you is ignited by hearing about this fire and the desert, I want you to know that your experience and your healing journey are also important. If you've been through something similar, or if something I shared touched your heart, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your story is valuable, and sharing it can help others feel less alone in this process. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if this content resonates with you and you want to continue listening to more messages like this, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your participation is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this kind of content. Because, ultimately, we're all here to walk together on this spiritual journey of healing and transformation. And, even though you may feel alone, at times, know that together, we can share our stories, learn from each other, and continue our journey of faith. Now, with a lighter heart, I will continue the story and show how that fire, which seemed destructive, became a beacon of light, guiding me to a more whole and fulfilled future. Because healing is not a straight line, but a path full of revelations, and, as we will see, a purifying fire that gives us a second chance. In many cultures and religions, fire is seen as a powerful symbol of purification and transformation. Just the fire we see in a bonfire, but the one that consumes us from within, burning away impurities and leaving only what is essential. Fire has the power to destroy, but also to purify, to remake us, to show us who we truly are. It is not just destruction, it is also revelation, clarity, light in the midst of darkness. And that's what happened to me when, in my dream, this fire appeared unexpectedly. It was an intense fire, but not aggressive. It arose with a gentle force, almost like a whisper from God, inviting me to look at what I feared most. The flames began to grow, illuminating the path I walked. But instead of bringing heat and destruction, they brought clarity, a gentle light that revealed what was hidden in my heart, in my past. I knew that fire had a mission. It was not there to burn me, but to purify me, to show me that the pain of the past, the memories I had repressed, the wounds I had not the courage to look at, needed to be exposed so they could be healed. As the flames rose before me, the desert around me became clearer, more real, and with it, a sense of loneliness washed over me, but not a desperate loneliness. It was a revealing loneliness, as if I were being led to a place where I could finally face my own inner self. The fire and the desert intertwined, as if part of the same process of transformation. The desert was not an empty place. It was filled with everything I had ignored, everything that needed to be faced. That feeling of being lost in a vast desert, with no one around, was what touched me most. Because, deep down, we've all been there, haven't we? Those moments of inner desert, where we feel alone, unsure of which direction to take, with the weight of past choices suffocating us. And it's precisely at this point that fire becomes the key to transformation. The fire that appeared in my dream wasn't just there to show me the parts of myself I didn't want to see. It was there to tell me that without facing them, I would never be truly free. I found myself facing a vast field of flames. And at the same time, deep within me, I felt fear and resistance. I wanted to run, to leave this place that made me confront my own ghosts, but somehow, with each step, the fire guided me to the next level of understanding. It burned away the lies I told myself, melted the barriers I had erected to avoid pain, and at the same time, it showed me that the only way out was forgiveness, not just forgiveness of others, but forgiveness of myself. The fire began to make sense. Each flame was a lesson, an opportunity to free myself. But the greatest revelation that fire brought was that purification. The true process of transformation begins within us, in those places we fear most. As the fire burned away old wounds, I realized that without it, I couldn't move forward. The fire made me understand that what I carried within me didn't have to define me. The pain, the memories, the mistakes of the past. All of it could be purified, left behind, like ashes in the wind. And what would remain would be a stronger, lighter, more whole version of myself. Have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever felt like you were in a desert, lost, not knowing how to move forward, but at the same time, feeling that something inside you was asking for transformation? This journey isn't easy, but it's necessary. And that's exactly what I want to talk about now, because what the fire taught me in that dream isn't something that happens once, but something that needs to be experienced repeatedly. Purification, transformation, forgiveness. It's an ongoing process, a journey that, even in difficult moments, always brings us closer to the truth. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, to explore how fire can actually shape us, show us what we need to see, and, at the same time, give us the strength to move forward. Because true transformation doesn't happen when everything is fine, but when we decide to face what we fear most. The desert is a peculiar place. It is at once vast and empty, yet also filled with profound meaning. In many cultures, it is seen as a space of solitude where the journey to transformation truly begins. A place where we are forced to confront our greatest fears, insecurities, and, most profoundly, the secrets we keep buried within ourselves. In my dream, the desert represented exactly that, the space where my past, which I had carefully hidden, would be revealed. I knew nothing would be more difficult than crossing that desert, but I also knew that this journey was crucial. As I walked through that arid expanse, a feeling of loneliness washed over me. The silence was profound and, at the same time, overwhelming. At first, it seemed like the desert was my enemy, a place of no return, where there would be no salvation. But as I progressed, I realized that I wasn't being tested simply by the solitude or the heat of the environment. I was being challenged to look at myself in a way I never had before. With each step, the desert forced me to confront parts of myself I had long ignored. Memories I didn't want to relive, feelings I had blocked to protect my heart, they were all there, emerging like ghosts from my own past. Each step I took seemed to echo louder, as if the desert was telling me I couldn't escape who I truly was. But the most challenging part wasn't the arid terrain or the suffocating heat. It was confronting my own shadows. I saw parts of myself I never wanted to face, the regrets I carried, the mistakes that haunted me, the choices I made that, deep down, I knew had led me to a place of pain and fear. However, the desert wasn't just a place to reveal old wounds, it was also an invitation to healing. When we find ourselves with no escape, the only way out is to confront what's in front of us. No matter how frightening, the feeling of being lost was constant, but at the same time, that desert began to transform. Each new step challenged me, but also brought me closer to a truer version of myself. I knew that the fire that had brought me there wasn't just there to expose me to suffering, but to give me an opportunity to grow, to understand myself more deeply, and, most importantly, to free myself from the invisible chains that bound me. The journey was arduous, but there was something powerful about it. I began to realize that, as much as I feared what lay ahead, every step I took in that desert was a step toward forgiveness. Not just for others, but also for myself, because the pain of the past only imprisons us when we don't face it, when we let it hide, waiting for the moment to explode. The desert showed me that. By looking head-on at my own flaws and scars, I began to realize the true meaning of healing. It wasn't an easy process. It wasn't immediate, but something inside me knew that this journey had a purpose. It wasn't just about walking through the desert, it was about being reborn within it. With each new revelation, the desert became less dark, What had once seemed a place of desolation was somehow transformed into a space of possibilities, of learning. I began to realize that the loneliness I felt was not something to be feared, it was necessary. Because, in silence, is when we truly hear the voice of our hearts. The desert wasn't punishing me. It was teaching me to listen, to understand, to grow, and, ultimately, to forgive. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic. Because true transformation only happens when we face these shadows and learn to release the weight of the past. When we stop running away and start looking head-on at what scares us, the desert becomes our greatest teacher. And it is precisely at this point that the path to healing and forgiveness reveals itself most clearly. Like an oasis waiting for us. The journey doesn't end in the desert, it only begins there. As I walked through the desert, the solitude I'd initially feared began to transform into something else. The heavy silence, which had once felt like an enemy, now became a fertile ground for the revelations I needed to face. And it was there, in that place of immensity and solitude, that I encountered what I feared most, my own past. It wasn't a gradual process, as I'd imagined. Suddenly, everything came flooding back. The painful memories and secrets I'd carefully buried, hoping time would erase them, were there, before me, unfiltered, unmasked. And without the protection I thought I had, I could no longer run. There was no more room to hide what had been kept hidden for so long. And there's no way to describe the feeling of seeing it all before you so raw. There were intense memories, images, words I no longer wanted to hear, but they were all there, closing in, staring me in the eye, as if delivering an ultimatum. It was as if the desert had become a mirror, reflecting not just what I saw on the surface, but what I truly am. With each memory, with each fragment of the past that emerged, fear and pain gripped me. It was as if reality were crumbling around me, and the weight of it all crushed me. But, curiously, something else began to emerge. It was a strange sensation, difficult to describe, but one that enveloped me gently and relentlessly. It was the feeling of being faced with a unique opportunity for transformation. The fear and pain, so familiar, began to blend with something new. Acceptance. An acceptance that wasn't about simply letting go of what had happened, but about understanding that this was the turning point. I realized that what I had kept bottled up for so long was no longer a prison, but a path to freedom. The desert wasn't a place of endless suffering, but a space where I needed to look at what was hidden, acknowledge the wounds, and thus begin to heal. The moment was simultaneously terrifying and liberating. I was seeing my weaknesses, my flaws, and my mistakes, and for a brief moment, I wondered if I could handle it all. There was no turning back, and in that moment, I realized I would never find peace until I confronted what lay before me. As each piece of my past unfolded, an idea began to form. Healing would only happen if I allowed this pain, these mistakes, to be part of who I am. Not as a burden, but as a foundation upon which I could build something new. As the memories began to reveal themselves, I was not only confronting what had been done wrong, but also what had not been done. The chances I had missed, the moments of silence that prevented me from acting, the forgiveness I had never given, either to myself or to others. It was all there, in a spiral of pain, regret, but also of a learning that could only be extracted from that emotional chaos. The fear of looking at this was great, but even greater was the feeling that, finally, I had the chance to rewrite my story, and it was in that moment, amidst the pain and regret, that true transformation began to take shape. It wasn't easy, of course. The emotion was overwhelming, but in that desert, I felt something moving within me. It was as if the very air around me was charged with a powerful energy, a greater force that urged me to keep going, to never give up on myself. Each new memory that emerged, each tear that fell, was no longer a burden, but a further step on my own journey of redemption. I was acknowledging the shadows of my past, but I was also allowing light to enter those dark places. Forgiveness, which had previously seemed so distant and almost unattainable, began to emerge as a real possibility. Not a simple or quick thing, but a daily choice I would have to make. And with it, a profound understanding that the past only remains alive in our minds if we choose to keep it alive. If I wanted to move forward, I would need to make peace with this part of myself. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because facing the past is only part of the journey. True transformation happens when we release the weight of those mistakes and pains and begin to understand how to move forward. Now lighter, more aware of our own strength. It's a slow process that requires patience, but it becomes increasingly necessary as we move forward in life, challenged by our own choices and the circumstances that shape us. Forgiveness is key, and it begins when we decide to look at the past, not as something that defines us, but as something that prepares us for something greater. While the desert around me seemed immense and desolate, something was beginning to move. It wasn't the wind, nor the shadows. It was a voice. Amidst the flames, where the heat seemed to cut through my skin and the sound of the fire was my only companion, a soft yet imposing voice made itself heard. It wasn't like a human voice, but like something deep, coming from the core of my being. as if the fire itself were speaking directly to my soul. At first, I thought it was the sound of my mind trying to make sense of all that pain. But then I realized it wasn't just a thought. It was something more real, more tangible, like a revelation that had manifested itself there, before me. The voice, unhurried, without a hint of judgment, said, "For you to move forward, you must first forgive and heal what is trapped within you." These words reverberated within me in a way I can't fully explain. It wasn't just advice. It was a gentle yet powerful command, as if that fire had come to purify me. But purification wasn't just a matter of fire burning away my wounds. It was a matter of looking within myself and allowing the pain of the past to be released. Once and for all, forgiveness, this simple yet meaningful word, held the key to what I still didn't understand. It was a necessary step, but at the same time, it felt like the greatest challenge of all. I felt, in those words, a weight and a freedom at the same time, as if the voice showed me that I carried within me a weight much greater than I imagined, a weight I didn't know how to lift. I had believed, for so long, that there was nothing inside me that needed healing. I thought I was fine. That time had healed everything. But now, faced with that voice, I realized that time had only hidden what I didn't want to see. The pain was still there, latent, waiting to be faced. And forgiveness, not only for others, but for myself, was the first step. The flames surrounding me seemed to flare brighter as these words echoed in my mind. The fire was no longer just a symbol of destruction, but of renewal. I was being called to accept that healing would only come when I finally allowed forgiveness to replace hurt, anger, and fear. I knew this wouldn't be easy. Forgiveness, in my mind, had always been elusive. Not because of others, but because of myself. How could I forgive what I'd done to myself? How could I heal the wounds I'd caused, ignored, or, worse yet, allowed to fester for so long? The voice continued, like a whisper in the midst of the fire. Forgiveness is not for others, but for you. It releases the chains that bind you to the past and allows you to move forward. In that moment, the words became a silent command. I knew that to move forward, I would need to look within, and that journey would not be comfortable. It is not easy to forgive, especially when the pain is so deep and rooted. But something inside me, something visceral, knew this was the way. The voice told me that forgiveness was not an act of weakness, but of strength. Forgiveness was the most powerful form of liberation, for only then could I free myself from the chains of the past and finally make room for healing. I was being guided by that voice, and each word seemed to illuminate a part of me that had been shadowed until then. The feeling of facing the unknown, the pain I didn't want to confront, was mixed with the relief that this voice was calling me to a greater purpose. It was as if, through the fire, the universe itself was offering me an opportunity to begin again, to free myself from everything that was holding me back. That fire wasn't just an agent of destruction. It was burning away the internal barriers I'd built, shattering the prejudices I had about myself and about forgiveness. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Forgiveness is a topic that transcends any of our individual experiences. It's not just a gesture we make for those who have hurt us, but a profound transformation within our very essence. When we truly forgive, we not only free others, but above all, we free ourselves. And it is this freedom that allows us to walk toward a lighter, fuller life, closer to our true purpose. The fire that guided me in that dream wasn't there just to purify me, but to teach me that, to evolve spiritually, it's necessary to make room for healing and the truth that resides in our hearts. This transformation only happens when we decide to forgive and allow ourselves to truly release what holds us back. Forgiveness had always been a topic I'd somehow understood, but never truly experienced in depth. All my life, I'd thought forgiveness was an act of generosity toward others, something you did when someone hurt you and you needed to release the emotional burden, as if it were only for those who'd hurt you. But in that dream, in the middle of that desert, something completely changed. I realized that forgiveness wasn't just for others. It was, above all, for myself. It was a key to my own liberation, a path to healing I'd ignored for so long. Fire, the voice, the desert, all of this led me to a great revelation. Forgiveness is not just a gesture of compassion toward those who have caused us pain, but an act of personal transformation, something that frees us from the invisible chains that bind us to the past. During my journey through that desert, I realized that all the resentment, all the hurt I carried, was preventing me from moving forward. These negative emotions were like heavy stones within my soul, keeping me trapped in old pain and memories. I believed that by staying away from forgiveness, I was protecting myself from new wounds. But the truth was, I was closing myself off to healing itself. I found myself faced with a crucial choice: continue carrying these burdens, these unhealed wounds, or allow myself the freedom that forgiveness would bring. The decision wasn't simple. Of course, the pain of the past was intense, and the memories weren't easy to let go of. But something inside me, in that voice that was both soft and strong, told me that to continue the journey, to grow spiritually, and find peace, I needed to let go of this burden. I needed to forgive. not for their sake, but for my own. That transformation began to happen gradually, and I knew I was at the beginning of a profound and painful, but also necessary, process. Without forgiveness, my soul could not heal. I was being called to move forward, to take the next step on my spiritual journey, and to do so, I needed to let go of the past. Forgiveness was the bridge to this new phase of my life, the key to unlocking a freedom I hadn't imagined possible. I realized that, as much as I had been hurt, the real weight I carried was resentment. It kept me tied to something that no longer existed, to an endless cycle of pain and bitterness. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting what happened or minimizing the pain, but rather releasing the power I had given to the past. I was no longer a prisoner of my own story and becoming the protagonist of my own transformation. It was like a gentle breeze that begins to blow and, over time, lifts the ashes from within us, leaving room for true reform. The transformation that forgiveness brings doesn't happen overnight, but rather through a gradual process that requires vulnerability, courage, and, above all, the decision to move forward. I also understood that forgiveness isn't an easy task, nor is it something we can do all at once. It's a process that involves not only accepting what happened, but also understanding that continuing to carry the hurt would only perpetuate the cycle of pain. And as difficult as it was, this healing process had an immediate impact on my soul. Each step I took toward forgiveness freed me more. Each time I let go of a hurt, I felt my heart lighten, as if my soul began to breathe again. This process was challenging, and the temptation to return to the old pattern of holding on to resentment was always there. But what I learned is that true strength comes when we choose, even in moments of weakness, to break free from what holds us back. Forgiveness became not only an act of generosity toward others, but a gift to myself. It allowed me to create space for new opportunities, a new mindset, a new beginning. I no longer needed to carry the burdens of the past, and it was this release, this choice to let go, that began to heal my soul. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because when we talk about forgiveness, we're not just talking about a moment of overcoming, but about a process of reinvention. Forgiveness allows us to move forward to the next stage of our journey, where we can become the best version of ourselves. It's a key that unlocks doors to a new perspective on life, where the weight of hurt and pain no longer prevents us from moving forward. When we decide to forgive, we truly open ourselves to true healing. With this, we begin to understand that, for our soul to heal and transform, we must embrace the power of forgiveness and experience the liberation it offers. Healing the wounds of the past is never a simple task. When we find ourselves faced with our own emotional scars, those left by bad decisions or inflicted pain, it's as if we're suddenly opening a box full of repressed feelings that, for so long, we've chosen to ignore. I felt this weight. I felt the difficulty of looking at what had been bottled up for so long, as if those unspoken emotions and unlived experiences paralyzed me. But deep down, I knew this process was necessary. There was no way to move forward, no way to transform myself without first facing what was inside me. Healing never happens all at once. We can't expect everything to suddenly be resolved or the pain to magically disappear. This is an illusion we all carry. In some way, the truth is that healing is gradual. It requires patience. It requires us to look at our wounds, not with anger or regret, but with a perspective of understanding and compassion. The dream taught me this viscerally. It forced me to look within myself and, at the same time, gave me the chance to begin healing, even if slowly and painfully. That experience in the desert, with the fire burning away the shadows of my past, showed me that healing begins with a simple but powerful step: recognition. I realized that to heal these wounds, I could no longer hide behind resistance. I was accustomed to pushing away the pain, to burying my feelings, as if time would heal them for me. But what I learned was that time doesn't erase scars. What erases pain is the process of looking at it, facing it, and finally understanding that we need to let it go. Each painful memory I brought to the surface felt like an additional burden, but paradoxically, each time I allowed that pain to surface, a weight disappeared. Healing began to happen when I began to allow my emotions to flow, instead of resisting them. That's when I understood that forgiveness was part of this process. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or diminishing the pain, but allowing that pain to be released, without it continuing to dominate me. This process of inner healing required more than just desire. It required courage. Courage to look at the open wounds and allow the transformation process to unfold. It wouldn't be easy. I knew I would often feel vulnerable, weak, and even confused. Healing isn't a straight line. It's full of ups and downs, moments when it feels like we're going backward, but in reality, we're just taking a step back to better understand what we truly need to release. That dream was the beginning of a journey that wasn't over, yet but one that I could already feel shifting my perception of pain and loss. I knew it would be a long journey, but I also realized that, over time, this process would become more natural. What initially felt like an unbearable weight became lighter over time. The secret was understanding that healing didn't happen all at once, but in stages. Each small step toward understanding my own emotions and feelings was a significant advancement, and this applied to both the deepest wounds and the small ones we often neglect. I realized that healing doesn't have to be grandiose, with grand gestures or moments of revelation. Often, healing begins with the simple act of acknowledging what hurts us and accepting that this process, though difficult, is essential. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because inner healing isn't limited to simply acknowledging our wounds, but also to our ability to give new meaning to what we've already experienced. It's not about forgetting, but about creating a new mindset, a new way of living with the scars of the past without being defined by them. This process of transformation requires us to change our relationship with what happened, so that, instead of remaining trapped in pain, we can walk with greater wisdom and lightness, knowing that we are ever closer to a more complete version of ourselves. The desert I traversed seemed endless. The pain, the shadows, the intense heat, and the loneliness had challenged me at every step. But something, even amidst that suffering, told me it all had a purpose. Deep down, I knew I wasn't being punished. I was being purified. The flames of fire surrounding me were burning away the chains that bound me, forcing me to face my own truth, confront the shadows of my past, and walk toward freedom. But as I moved forward, something else awaited me. I didn't know exactly what it was, but something inside me began to shift. The desert, with all its heaviness and loneliness, began to dissipate, giving way to a light that seemed to come from somewhere far beyond me. At the end of my path, as I emerged from the desert, a bright light appeared before me. I wasn't sure where it came from, but the feeling of relief was instantaneous. It was as if that light were the promise of new life, of renewal unfolding before me, like dawn after a long dark night. That glow wasn't blinding or glaring. It was welcoming, soft, and penetrating, as if it were calling every part of my being to a new beginning. The feeling that came with this light was indescribable. After so much time of struggle, of facing my fears, my failures, the shadows of a past I'd tried to bury, this light brought me a peace I'd never experienced before. It was a peace that didn't depend on external circumstances, but on a deep inner feeling, as if a great burden had been lifted from my shoulders. It was as if, finally, I was free to live, to be who I truly am, without the shackles of guilt or shame I'd carried for so long. I felt embraced by this light, as if it were telling me that the suffering had come to an end, that the purification was complete, and that now was the time for rebirth. This relief wasn't sudden or immediate, but something that built throughout the journey. Every step in the desert, every battle with my own shadows, every time I released an old pain or a pent-up resentment, was a movement toward that light. And when it finally appeared, I knew it wasn't just a momentary vision or an isolated experience. The light was within me. It had always been there, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting for me to face my wounds and thus allow myself to embrace the new. I understood that true light isn't something that comes from outside, but something we can access when we consciously choose to heal the parts of ourselves that remain in the shadows. That moment was a milestone in my journey. I knew that, despite all the challenges that might still arise, something had shifted within me. I had reached the end of a cycle of pain and suffering and was about to begin a new phase. It was as if, in that moment, the desert had shaped me, taught me, and at the same time, freed me. I knew the path ahead would not be easy. There would be no straight line to inner peace. But that light, which shone in the midst of the desert, showed me that transformation is possible, healing is possible, and that, even in the most difficult circumstances, there is always the promise of renewal. The light, in that moment, was more than a simple vision. It was a promise that I was ready for the next stage of my journey. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because the light that emerged at the end of my desert is not a light that easily it remains lit within us, like a flame that guides us, directs us, and helps us make more conscious decisions. This light is a reflection of our ability to overcome, to learn from pain, and to understand that true peace comes when we finally find the courage to forgive and move forward, leaving the past where it belongs. The journey of transformation is not a destination, but a continuous path, where with each step taken, the light grows brighter and guides us to new horizons of self-understanding and fulfillment. The experience I had in that dream, with the fire in the desert, is not unique. I know that many of us, at some point in our lives, find ourselves on a similar journey, where we are challenged to face our past. No matter how much we try to escape or ignore it, life has a way of pulling us back to what we need to confront. And that's precisely what made me understand something profound. Transformation doesn't happen only through great victories or external changes. It begins when we decide to look within ourselves, when we choose to face what truly hurts us, what we fear most. The message I received in the dream, about the power of forgiveness and healing, is a universal message, accessible to everyone. Each of us can experience these moments of transformation, where the pain of the past, no matter how intense, teaches us the importance of freeing our hearts through forgiveness. Only then can we find true peace, true healing. And that's the crux of it. You too can have your desert and your flame. Each of us has our own inner battles, our own moments of pain and loneliness. But the big difference lies in how we deal with the challenges that arise along the way. We all face difficulties, but it's how we choose to navigate them that will define our transformation process. What happened to me in my dream can happen to any of us, because we are all, in some way, struggling with the shadows that haunt us. The difference is that by embracing the opportunity to heal and forgive, we become stronger, more whole, and more prepared to live authentically. I know that. As I talk about this, you may be asking yourself, do I have the courage to face my own wounds? Can I look at my past and forgive? The answer is yes. Transformation doesn't require perfection or unwavering strength. It requires vulnerability and the courage to begin, even if the steps are small. There's no shame in feeling fear or hesitation. The important thing is to keep going, even with uncertainty, because each step is progress, and each challenge faced is an opportunity for growth. When we decide to open ourselves to this journey of transformation, when we accept forgiveness as part of healing, we free ourselves from what keeps us trapped in the past. Pain ceases to be a prison and becomes a solid foundation for our future. The key is to understand that, although the desert is arid and painful, it is also fertile ground for growth. The true spiritual journey begins when we are able to look at our shadows and, instead of running away from them, decide to integrate them into our journey. And this, in itself, is one of life's greatest achievements. Now I want to delve even deeper into this process, because the transformation that comes through forgiveness and inner healing is not a one-off, but an ongoing process. Each time we decide to release the weight of the past, the fire of transformation grows stronger, clearer, guiding us to a place where we can be more authentic, more at peace with ourselves and others. And in this process, life becomes lighter, fuller, and the light that once seemed distant is now within our reach. Each step toward healing brings us closer to a new beginning, a new chapter. That dream, with its images of fire and desert, prepared me for much more than I could have grasped at the time. When I woke up, feeling as if I had experienced something profound, something more than a simple dream, I knew I was being shaped to face something greater. The spiritual impact that moment had on me was indescribable. It wasn't just about what happened in the desert, it was about what I was being called to experience after that encounter. The dream not only showed me the wounds I carried, but also gave me the key to understanding and healing them. It prepared me to face the challenges ahead, teaching me a valuable lesson, the importance of being at peace with myself before moving forward. I realized that inner peace is not a final destination, but an ongoing process. Throughout my life, I've sought various ways to overcome obstacles and deal with difficulties. But what that dream revealed to me was profound and revelatory. We cannot move toward the future with true confidence if the issues that torment us in the present are not resolved. The wounds we hide, the unhealed hurts, the resentments, all of this accumulates and, in some way, prevents us from moving forward freely. The dream, with its intensity, made me understand that, before seeking new achievements, we need to reconcile with what's left behind. I wasn't just being challenged to leave the desert, but to face the truth about myself. The truth that true spiritual strength comes not from resistance or denial, but from acceptance and inner transformation. How can we hope to weather life's storms if we aren't at peace with the storms within us? Forgiveness, healing, and releasing. The past were the most profound lessons of that moment. When we understand that faith is not just a passive belief, but an active force that helps us heal our wounds and move forward with courage, everything changes. Faith, especially in difficult times, becomes a transformative force when we learn to forgive and heal our inner wounds. This process of spiritual healing, of purification, is not something that happens all at once. It is gradual, requiring us to be honest with ourselves, to face the shadows, and, most importantly, to release what imprisons us. And in those moments of pain and discomfort, faith is strengthened. It is not strengthened in easy times, but in adversity, when we decide, despite everything, to take a step forward, certain that, even if we don't see the path clearly, we have the strength within us to cross any desert. The forgiveness and healing I experienced in that dream taught me that true peace comes from within, from reconciling our own struggles and pain, so that we are ready for whatever the future holds. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because spiritual transformation isn't something that happens overnight. Each of us has our own journeys and challenges to face, but the key to overcoming them lies within us. How we choose to face what we've been given, how we deal with our own shadows and wounds, is what will determine our ability to grow, evolve, and ultimately live in peace. No matter how difficult the obstacles, true faith teaches us that we can, indeed, overcome them all. And this prepares us, in a much deeper and more real way, for the challenges that still lie ahead. Now that we've reflected on the lessons fire and the desert brought to my journey of transformation, I want to step back and ask you an important question. Have you ever had a dream that somehow revealed something profound about your life? Something that felt like a calling, as if you were forced to face a part of yourself that had been hidden, or perhaps ignored, for so long. Sometimes these are experiences that, at first glance, seem like mere blurry images or fleeting moments. But when we reflect more deeply, we see that they contain powerful messages. I know this dream was a turning point in my life, and perhaps it's the same for you. The impact of confronting the past, releasing what no longer serves, and making room for the new can be transformative in ways that words can't always express. I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced something like this? A moment or dream that touched you deeply, revealing something you needed to see for your evolution? How has this impacted your journey so far? Leave a comment below and share your experience. What did you learn from it? How has this kind of revelation changed your way of seeing the world or even your own spirituality? I know that by sharing these experiences, we can all grow together, find strength in each other, and discover that we are not alone in our quest for transformation. If you feel this video touched your heart, it would be incredibly helpful if you left a comment. I truly believe these transformative messages need to be shared so more people can connect with them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive more content like this, which challenges us to reflect, grow spiritually, and walk toward a more authentic life connected to our inner truth. Let's join us on this journey of faith and spiritual transformation. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me until the end of this journey. I hope the words I shared touched something within you, as they did me. If you felt this message was meant for you, let me know in the comments. Something like "I'm with you until the end," or "this message was meant for me," says it all. It really helps to create even greater connection between us and strengthen this spiritual journey. If you found this video meaningful, please leave a like. It's a simple gesture, but it motivates me to continue bringing you more content that can touch your soul. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to do so. This ensures you'll receive more videos like this, full of insights and reflections that can contribute to your journey of transformation. There's a video right here that really fleshes out this topic. Click on it and come with me on this journey. I'll be waiting for you there. See you soon.